Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Craig Villarrubia, and you are joining us on Awakening with A Course in Miracles. And as every morning begins here at this episode, I get really excited about the episode, the opportunity to share, the joining, and of course, the guest. And today, my guest is Reverend Myron Jones, who will be joining us. And I'm really excited about having Myron here. I was just mentioning to I think it was Sparrow that when I see Myron, I just want to give her a big hug. Every time I see the teachings, and I just want to squeeze Myron because I just feel so touched in my heart whenever she extends the teachings of love. And I can't wait to talk a lot more about those teachings with Myron in just a second. So I will introduce her shortly and bring her on, but before we do that, I just want to also make some announcements, so share some announcements. We will be meeting again here next week. My guest will be my colleague, Corinne Zupko. We also have the conference in Las Vegas coming up, so if you haven't registered or you want to come, please come join us. We'd love to have you, and if you're inspired to do so, make mention of Miracle Share as the inspiration for joining us in Vegas. There's also a few retreats coming up. You can go ahead and check my website for updates on that information. And today's episode is themed after the Holy Spirit's curriculum. In fact, there's chapter 12, the Holy Spirit's curriculum in A Course in Miracles. And as I was looking at it today and just taking in some of the teaching as I was about to join everybody on this call, I was just reminded of so many beautiful messages and quotes coming out of that chapter. And there's just one line that I'd like to read to you that landed beautifully, and it's the first line in chapter 12, section 5, the same curriculum, and it reads, "Only love is strong because it is undivided." Only love is strong because it is undivided. And then the thought came to mind, or the feeling came to mind, that it is strong. It is strong because it is undivided, which basically means it has everything. It has everything. And so what could be stronger than everything? Love has the power of everything. There's nothing separate. So only from the perception of separation is the idea of weakness. And so, of course, the idea in a separate self, a separate body, a separate identity from our source, which is everything, which is undivided, only the idea in separation, or the belief that we are something other than extensions of love or extensions of God, can be weak. And so it is the belief in that weakness that seems to cause suffering. And so this is just a beautiful reminder that love is really the only aim and the only goal. And as I think about the Holy Curriculum, it's really the only thing, the Holy Spirit's curriculum, it's the only thing that works. And so let this be a reminder as we go about being what's really ultimately important. And so I really think that the Holy Spirit's curriculum is really just that, to bring us back to the recognition of our strength, which is our love, which is really our identity in God. So with that, I'd like to open it up and thank Myron Jones for taking the time to meeting with us. Thank you for being here, Myron.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm very happy to be here.
Very happy to be here.
Am I supposed
Awesome. So,
I hear an echo. Oops, everybody went away.
Can you hear us, Myron?
The screen keeps going brown. I don't see anything. Is that normal?
Okay. It's probably internet.
Okay, gotcha. No problem. Yeah, I'm just really happy to be here, Craig, and I love Chapter 12. I don't have my book with me, so I can't reference anything, but I just love doing that chapter, reading that chapter. There's so much in it. It's so very helpful. Did you, I know you said that, tell me, if you would, just tell me what is your favorite thing in there.
Well, one of the favorite things is it makes mention. I'm going to paraphrase because I don't know it exactly, and I don't want to look at it. But basically, one of the things that that chapter says is that we're going to be on a search because we're not at home.
Yeah.
And so that search, when I think, is going to be really one of two searches: the search for the ego's plan, or the search that will keep the ego in perpetual searching, or the one search which is really the search back home in truth, which is love, which in my feeling or perspective is really the Holy Spirit's curriculum. The curriculum from the Holy Spirit is helping us with that one search. Yeah. Myron, can you share a little bit about your experience? You've been with the course for quite some time. Can you share a little bit about your experience with your search back home, and how this has evolved, your sharing, and what you do with the Course in Miracles?
Yeah, I have been doing it for a long time. It started back in '81 when I discovered A Course in Miracles, and I spent many years working on it very slowly. Just there was a lot of resistance in me, a lot of feeling of unworthiness, and I had to work my way through. But in about 1998 or so, that began to change. And I would like to say that I made it change. The ego would like to say that I made it change, that I made a choice and everything changed. But really, you know, as I look back at it, what I understand is it was time. And so everything fell into place. And the way it fell into place was miraculous, but that's true probably for a lot of people. At least it has appearance of the miraculous, because it seems to be outside the laws of the world, how everything fell into place for me, and things began to really, and I remember thinking, my last child is almost grown. I need something in my life with meaning, some purpose. And I thought, what have I ever done besides raise kids that had purpose? And I thought, I've always been happiest whenever I was working with the Course. Whenever I would be given this opportunity to share it with somebody. So I said, that's what I want. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to really buckle down, get serious about my study of the Course. And I thought, you know what I need is something with structure, because I've been out of the habit of doing things, and I need to get back into it. I need to form good study habits, that kind of thing. And then all at once, it began to appear for me in many different ways. And one of the ways was I started studying with Pathways of Light quite by accident. You know, that happened. And that gave me the structure that I needed. And so from there, everything just seemed to expand very quickly for me, so that my teaching was just so much deeper than it was before. About that same time, I started writing my thoughts and writing my communication with Holy Spirit. And that was a big turning point as well, because it helped me to develop that real strong connection with Spirit, so that I could hear clearly when He wanted me to know something. And the more that I wrote, the more that happened. But as it turns out, it seems that I was supposed to share it as I wrote it, and this was brand new for me, because I was always one of those people who didn't want to share. I wanted to keep that wall, you know, that mask. I wanted to keep that mask on so that people wouldn't know who I really was. But Spirit made it very clear that this had to be shared, and had to be shared honestly, very transparently. So that's what I did.
I just wanted to say that's what I find so heartfelt in your teaching is the mask seems to dissolve in your sharing, because when some of the posts that I read, in fact, there was something that you wrote recently, and I'm going to paraphrase. You were talking about something about relationships, or you know, when you want to blame somebody or you feel like you're unfairly treated. And the way that you share it is so honest, and it's so honest that I feel you. I'm with you in that discovery. And so I never get the sense that you know, that you're there to try to tell somebody or use the teaching to establish yourself as somebody who knows something, or who's trying to you know, to know something. It's really this humble expression of really the what I perceive as the undoing or the recognition of what's true. And in your sharing, I feel like I'm joining you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, that's exactly right, and I think that's why Holy Spirit introduced me to that idea of doing it in this way, because one is that I had to become transparent. I had to open up. I had to take down those walls. Because how am I ever going to undo the separation in my mind if I'm busy defending myself against other people's opinions, you know? So that was very important to me, and of course it's important to other people too, because as you said, you can relate. I mean, who cannot relate to these everyday ego hurdles, you know, these challenges, these mistakes, and then also to relate the successes. And I don't hesitate to do that either. I don't do it out of the sense of, gosh, look what I did, but it's more as a sense of, look what you can do. Because if I can do it, anybody could do it. I mean, because where I started, it was a very bad place, you know, and worked my way through it with A Course in Miracles. And so that's, you know, that's basically, when I first started doing it, it was very scary. It's very scary, to be honest. And when I started writing what Spirit was giving me, as opposed to just saying what I was reading, that was very scary, because I just knew people were going to say, who does she think she is? But all of that went away as the mind healed. All of that went away because I quit caring about what anybody else thought. And that came with the healing. It's like I didn't set out to go, gosh, this is scary and miserable, and I want to fix it. I just set out to heal my mind. And as my mind began to heal, the fear dropped away. And now I do it freely. And if someone doesn't like what they're reading, they read something else. You know, it's not for everybody. This is I don't tell anybody else how they're supposed to do it. This is just the way that I'm doing it. If you relate, if it's helpful, wonderful. If it's not, wonderful. You know, it's okay. I don't care. And that's just made everything a lot easier. But I do absolutely love this chapter because of what he tells us in here. You know, he tells us that, makes it very clear, we don't know how to do this ourselves. We cannot, by ourselves, in other words, with ego, we cannot extricate ourselves from what we've done. We need help. We need a teacher. We have a teacher. And here's how you use that teacher. I mean, it's just so clear. It's so useful to be able to follow these simple instructions that he gives us. And it is very simple. I know I have sometimes people ask me over and over again, the same people asking me over and over again, but what do I say? How do I do this? You know, and it's not going to get any sexier, you know. It's just you look at your thoughts, you see where it's not a thought you're thinking with God. You ask that thought be removed, and to the degree that you're ready for it to be removed, it's going to be removed. But it's just something I continue to do over and over, and everything else just follows on its own accord. I got happier. I'm less judgmental than I used to be. I'm closer to awakening than I ever have before. But all of that didn't come because I set out to gain that specific thing, or because I, you know, I wake up every day saying, you know, I want to be happier today. I wake up every day saying, heal my mind of this belief that's keeping me from being happy, that's keeping me from being at peace, because all that stuff is there. the happiness, the peace, the awakening, everything is already there. I just want to remove all the blocks. And so I look for the blocks. I asked if they'd be removed. I accept it to the best that I can. I keep peeling away at the onion, you know, and some of those that feel really big in my mind, you know, have a few things that are really big. Today's lesson has been a big for me because it says, make this your only function, your only goal. Make this your only goal. And so I said, okay, Holy Spirit, let me know, you know, hit me with it. What am I making something else? And what other goal am I choosing? Because if I choose two goals, my mind is split. You know, so I'm right back where I started. I'm not doing what I want to do. I want to heal the split. So if I choose two goals, it's got to be this part of my mind and that part of my mind. So the very first thing that happened is I got dressed and I put on my pants and they're tight and I'm like, oh no, I gotta lose some weight. And I'm like, no, that's not my goal. It's not my goal to lose weight. My goal is to wake up. My goal is to accept God's function as, you know, what his function is for me. That's my goal. And so it's just been a day of looking at the things, some little things, big things, you know, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. If it's not God's function for me, then it's not something I want.
That was beautiful. There's so many little nuggets in your just this sharing here, and what stands up in my mind is a couple of things. When you shared a little bit about being exposing what's happening in your mind as you share and so forth, the thought that came to me that I'm always, to the best of my ability, remembering is that by exposing ourselves, and this is not to suggest that everybody has to do it in this particular way, but in my experience, as I expose myself, I feel like I'm stepping into what appears to be a vulnerable place, but the miracle really is then recognizing that, in fact, because I'm invulnerable, that was just an illusion, like many other thoughts that we have about who and what we are. So this willingness to bear it all, not that I have to do anything. I will be shown when that opportunity is there, or when that has to happen. But as I'm willing to bear it all, I'm shown that by stepping into what I believe is my vulnerability, I learn or recognize really that I am invulnerable.
Yes.
And so that was kind of what I was hearing and feeling as you were sharing. The other thing that came to mind as you were talking, and it's the first line in chapter 12, Section 1, the judgment of the Holy Spirit. It says, you've been told not to make error real, and the way to do this is very simple. If you want to believe in error, you would have to make it real because it is not true. But truth is real in its own right, and to believe in truth, you do not have to do anything. So as you were just sharing, you were talking about the simplicity of really what this is. The simplicity of really what this is recognizing those errors and no longer wanting to make them real anymore, not wanting to go on that ego search, because that's what those errors seem to be. It's the ego's attempt to try to find, to get for itself, or try to find something for itself, not making those errors real, but instead recognizing truth is real in its own right, and to believe in truth, you don't have to do anything. So there is something here, always with us, that is real, that we don't have to do anything for. And as you were sharing, and you talk about waking up in the morning, it takes effort to make judgment on the body. It takes effort to make something wrong. So it's like withdrawing that energetic tendency of the thought system that wants to make error, and just coming back to hear the simplicity of just joining with mighty companions and friends to awaken to this truth. So thank you for sharing that. I want to also at this point is just let everybody know that you're welcome to ask questions. Myron's here to share, so if you feel called to ask a question, I ask simply that you unmute yourself and just join into the conversation. You're welcome to do so. I'm going to read a line, Myron, and I'm going to ask you to just share some of the thoughts that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Okay, so this one says, defenses that do not work at all are automatically discarded. If you raise what fear conceals to clear-cut, unequivocal predominance, fear becomes meaningless. You have denied its power to conceal love, which was its only purpose. The veil that you have drawn across the face of love has disappeared.
Yeah, read the first few words to me again.
Defenses that do not work at all are automatically discarded.
Right, that
If you
part,
raise,
yeah, okay. Yeah, so, that's exactly what's been happening, I've noticed, is that I've used a lot of defenses in my life. I've begun to notice that they're not working, and that, that began to occur slowly as I used things that did work. As as I let go of things, I saw, oh, okay, that does work. I can ask for healing of this. I can ask for another way to see it, and suddenly there's a thought in my mind that I didn't come up with on my own. There it is. This helps me to see more clearly. And so I quit using the things that don't work. It was just the other day I was just noticing I don't know why it just suddenly occurred to me, but I'm just driving along. I do a lot of driving in my work. And so I'm driving along, and everything is just fine. Everything's hunky-dory. I'm just doing great, being very happy. And suddenly I start thinking about a customer that I haven't seen lately. And I'm thinking, oh, man, I should have gone by there. And I wonder if my competitor's been over there while I've been ignoring him. And so what begins to happen is a whole problem starts unfolding in my mind. And then I think, okay, what do I need to do about this? Do I need to call him? Do I need to go by and see him? Should I send him a little gift or card? And so what occurred, of course, all of us see these things happening all the time. But what occurred to me and what was really helpful to me this time is I had the realization that just such clarity that I had no problem. And so my mind was at rest, and the ego dislikes rest. It dislikes peace. It dislikes that silence. And so it gave me a problem. And because I still am triggered to some extent by this fear of loss, fear of lack, I paid attention to it. And so when I paid attention to it, the ego says, well, here's how we can fix it. Here's what we need to do. So when I saw that happen, I stopped. I asked Holy Spirit to guide me in this. Is there something that I do need to address here? And if it is, well, then let me know when and what. And I let it go. But it just made me start paying a lot of attention. And I felt like that was the purpose. That's what Spirit was showing me, because I've been asking him, been very vigilant for my mind lately, been very vigilant for his answers, and asking him to help me. I want to wake up. I said, God, please wake me up. And so, so I think this is why these things are coming very quickly for me now and very clearly. And so I started paying a lot of attention to my mind, for watching for this to happen. And every time I'm at peace, the ego offers me another problem. It's just like, here's a problem. Here's a problem. I bet you hadn't thought of that today. Worry about this. And if that doesn't work, hey, how about that thing you did before? Would you like to go back over that? Let's replay that and see how bad we can feel. But so this is just the ego saying, here, let's stay in this. And if I follow that, I'm following the ego curriculum. If I continue to worry about that customer, If I kept saying, okay, what could I do? Let me make a list here, of things I could do. That's not the answer. What I wanted was the Holy Spirit's curriculum. That other one doesn't work. I've tried it. There is no way I can control life. I can't make sure I'm never sick. I can't make sure a customer never leaves me. I can't make sure I always have the same salary tomorrow that I have today. I can't make my kids safe. I can't do any of these things. So that doesn't work. All the solutions ego offers me, even if it works in the moment, the problem hasn't been solved. And so another will come up. It will come up in a different form, a different image of the same problem. And so it just doesn't work. And so what I'm doing now is instead, as soon as I notice it, then I'm asking Holy Spirit, how do you want me to see this? What do you want me to know about this? What should I do? Should I do anything? And if I don't get an answer to do something, then I don't do anything. I wait. I've noticed the Holy Spirit doesn't tend to work in the future. He works in the moment. I've asked, and so I trust that the answer will be there when I need it. And it just seems to be working.
Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. It also addresses a question that was posed in the chat. Deborah asks, that draw is the ego tempting us to forget what we are, yes? And so as I hear Deborah's question and I hear your sharing, I have to say, yeah, to feel separate, there must be this belief in this thought system of me that needs to get something or search something or plan something or take charge. So yes, that ego thought system is its purpose is really to give an experience of separation. That's it. That's its purpose. And as you were sharing, Myron, it's funny because I recently was having thoughts about work as well. I actually left my job a little over a year ago, and I've been thinking, about the future, and going back to what you said, the Holy Spirit doesn't work in time. And so I was having thoughts about the future. It's like, what is it going to be? And do I need to go back to work? And all of a sudden, I found myself in this little storm of thinking. And in that moment, thankfully, by the grace of the Holy Spirit and His curriculum, there's an awareness of I'm in a world that doesn't exist when I'm in that hurricane of thoughts. And so going back to what you said, Myron, and I love what you just said when you said when nothing shows up, there's nothing to do. So to pause and be willing to say, okay, this storm in my mind is happening. I'm aware of it. Thank you for the awareness. Do I want to continue it? No, I want the Holy Spirit's curriculum, which is a present curriculum. So what's now? Where's my peace now? Where is that? I'm open to that. Lead me, guide me. And it's almost like a relinquishment of that pattern to accept the wholeness of what's occurring. And if there's an answer, so if the answer is, oh, here is a job or here's something to do, then I will know that in the moment, not because I've planned for it or because I'm trying to solve the problem, because what you said, Myron, is so perfect. We may seem to solve the symptom of what's happening temporarily, but it doesn't really cure us. It doesn't give us the wholeness, which, going back to the quote that was shared before, which is, it is in the undividedness that our strength lies. So I feel your answer is so appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the same section, he tells us, retire as your own teacher. You haven't done a good job. So that part of me that needs to retire, the ego thinking mind. If I can, I don't try really hard to get rid of all my thoughts. Although I do practice sinking below them for brief periods, very brief. I have a very disciplined mind. But I give myself that gift, of sinking below them and just listening to the silence for a moment or two every time I think about it. But I need to quit believing my thoughts. That's the thing. Let me not believe the thoughts that I see. If I quit believing them, they'll sort of pass by without me paying much attention or noticing. At least that's been my experience so far. This is an area which I am still very much a baby at. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. I went through a period of time trying to get rid of all thoughts. I have a friend who does not have thoughts unless she needs them. She just has that little staticky sound, that you get when you're not thinking. That's all she has. When she needs to think, she's at work and she's to remember a process or do something, and the thoughts come into her mind to, how to do it. That's good. And then when she's through with it, she's back to nothing, and that must be very nice. But that's not really what I'm aiming for here. What I want is to learn that the ego mind chatters all the time. And I don't have to believe what I hear. What I do need is a guide through all of that, through all of that chatter. I need help to release the ones that are not true, that I still believe in, but are not true. When I was trying to decide for myself what was real and what wasn't real, when I was trying to get rid of them, when I first started the course, I did that all the time. I would notice that I was having these judgmental thoughts and I couldn't quit. And I was like, oh no, I'll never do this. And is this even real? And has anybody ever done this? Because I was trying to do it myself. I was trying to solve my own problems, teach myself, be my own guide. Doesn't work. Didn't work for me anyway. So, and of course, in Miracles tells us it's not going to work. So my practice, my consistent practice, be vigilant for my thoughts, notice when they're not true, ask the Holy Spirit to correct my thinking. Jesus says in the Course, he says, the Holy Spirit will remove that thought from your mind. I mean, literally remove it from your mind. I mean, that was extremely meaningful for me to read that, to say he would literally remove. I mean, you can't get any clearer than that. And since I read that, I had to notice that experience. And so I would be having this whole ego storm going on in my head, and finally come to my senses, remember what I'm supposed to be doing here, ask the Holy Spirit to just remove that from my mind, and it's just gone. It's one of the reasons why if something dramatic happens in my shifts, I write about it quickly, because once it's gone, it's gone. I can't even remember it. And I definitely can't bring up the emotion around it. I might be able to remember the fact, but I can't bring up the emotion. Because it's
Yep.
gone. And that is the miracle. That is that total change of mind. I can't make that happen. The best I can do is to question my thoughts. If I question my thoughts in one form or another, and my favorite form is to question it with the Holy Spirit. But change my thoughts, I can't do that. I can choose to have that done for me.
I do have a comment or question, if it's okay.
Sure, great.
And maybe I'm just seeking confirmation. Craig talked about the storm of thoughts in your head. I think that's a good description of storm. And you mentioned making lists of things. And it's funny because just last night I made myself a whole list of things I need to get done today. And of course, as I'm even making the list, a certain sense of anxiety comes up, just around getting the list done. If I don't get it done, things are going to go to hell in a handbasket. And so sometimes I think that my best approach for me, because I do have a hard time letting go of things that are anxious for me, and I feel like I need to go do something, is to go ahead and take some time to be quiet and ask for guidance and just say, well, while I'm busy doing my little numbers here, please come with me and help me get through this, seeking your guidance. And so it kind of leaves a little bit of space open, even while I'm in the midst of my doing that's motivated by anxiety. So even in the midst of doing that, I think it helps to have that willingness and openness to hear Spirit, give you the answer in the moment, as you were saying, because the Spirit doesn't seem to plan, Spirit doesn't seem to make lists, but I find myself doing that. So I just want to get your thoughts on that it seems appropriate, at least for me, to try to, I guess I'll say straddle the fence, which is, again, kind of not saying I'm giving the split mind an opportunity, but I'm giving myself an opportunity to be gentle with myself and let me move through it in a way that seems less scary. I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
Thank you. I love that you brought this up because I totally relate to that. I'm a Virgo, and I don't know, I think this is kind of a Virgo trait. You know, you just like to be organized, and you want everything planned out. You know, so I'm a big one. Listen, as I've gotten older, my memory isn't what it used to be. And so I get nervous that I'm going to forget something important, and so I make lists. You know, I think it's really helpful to say, Holy Spirit, help me make this list. Make this list with me. What should be on my list? In other words, instead of me saying, Holy Spirit, here's what I need to get done, come in here and give me a hand with it, I'm saying, what should be on my list today? And then I just write whatever comes to me if I feel the need to do so. And I do. I've got little lists all over the place here of things that I want to retire, not this year, probably next year, maybe toward the end of the year. And I've got a list of things I need to buy before I retire. You know, so like I'm going to forget something. So it's just a habit, you know, that I have to do this. But I bring Holy Spirit into everything, you know. So and I do it in a sense of you be in charge of my list. The other thing that I do is I hold my list very lightly. I've really come to trust inner guidance. So like during the week, all week long, I drive from town to town because I sell chemicals to towns. So I have to go from town to town. I drive a lot of miles. I see a lot of customers. My company insists on having my calendar filled out for the whole month. So I fill it out. And I need a place where I need to know basically where I'm going to go. I have to know where the hotel I'm going to be staying at so I can make my reservations. So there's a certain amount of planning that I have to do, a certain amount of list making. But I've also discovered that while I'm out there doing this job, all of a sudden I'll have the thought, I need to go see someone. And I don't question it. I turn around. I don't care if it takes me completely off my route and on the other side of the state, I do it. And I never suffered from having done that. It's always been a good idea. There's always been a reason that it needed to be done. Sometimes it was to do with work. Sometimes it was something else, something personal for that particular customer. I had a customer one time that I went in to see, and I had been asking Holy Spirit, are you sure that me selling chemicals is a really good use of my time? You know, shouldn't I like be doing my ministry instead? I went in to see a customer, a really, really nice person. I love visiting her. And when I went in there, she was very unfriendly. She did not want me there, I could tell. And so I'm, okay, you know, things happen. So I said goodbye, just, you know, spoke to her briefly and said goodbye, turned to leave. And I had my hand on the doorknob. And Holy Spirit said, no. No. And I didn't question it at all. I just turned around and I said, is this something you want to talk about? Is there something that that you'd like to share with me? And she looked at me for a minute like she was going to tell me to leave. Then she said, yes, I mean, she was just really unhappy. So I stayed. We sat down. We talked. She told me about she had breast cancer. She just found out she had breast cancer. So there were some things going on at work. And I'm listening to this, and if this had been a Course in Miracles student that I was listening to, I would have known exactly what to say, but I didn't know what to say. So I was totally with Spirit on this one. I'm like, Holy Spirit, I don't know what to say to this woman. Please tell me what to say. And nothing came. Nothing came. It's a very scary place to be, you know, when you're not hearing anything. And so I just waited. And then when we're through, the only thing that came to me is, would you like to pray together? Which is scary for me, too, because I was raised Catholic. The only prayers I knew were ones I learned by heart. This whole business of just praying naturally does not come easy to me. So I was a little scared when I said it, but it was what I was supposed to say, so I did. And she said yes. And we just held hands and said some little simple prayer. And when I was through, whenever I got ready to leave, she said, you have no idea how important it was that you showed up here today. And in fact, on the same day, this is about the list things, like, you know, on my list, person to go see, and it's way down the road when I thought, I wonder if I should have gone. I wonder if I should have gone, and I got a telephone call from her. She asked me to come see her. And so I turned around and I went back. Should have listened to my guidance in that case. I got back there, and I almost said no because, but I really have a habit of saying, you know, these little things are nudges. I'd had the thought I need to see her, and then she calls. So I went back, and we had a talk, and she didn't need anything, and I'm like, why didn't you want me to come all the way back here? And then she gets into a personal story. And so once again, you know, we had a chance to, and she told me almost the same thing. I'm so glad you came by. It was so important. So I hold my list very lightly. I'm always open to Holy Spirit changing it. Sometimes I get the feeling like there's just too much, can't get it done. What I'm going to do next, I can't even remember because there's so much going on, and then I just stop. And I say, what do you want me to do right now? Right now. And something will come to me, and I do it. And so I do both. Sometimes I make the list, but I'm also learned to hold that list lightly. Let the Holy Spirit help me make my list. Let the Holy Spirit change my list. You know, it's just and it's easy to do. It's just a practice. It's just a practice to learn to listen to that. Thank you for the question.
It's beautiful. It kept reminding me as you were sharing, Myron, that we just don't know what anything's for, even the list. It's like, it's not about not making lists. Let the list be, but we don't know what the list is for. If that's what's happening, that's what's happening. The suffering seems to come in when we think the list is for something to get, and that's where, you know, if we're not taking it lightly, we'll be disappointed.
Yeah, and that we know what the list is for. That's the thing. I can decide what the list is for. Then
yeah, and for peace.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I loved what you shared about, you talked a little bit about work, and you had the thought or question about, you know, is this what I'm to do, and so forth. And I love what you said, because this curriculum does not have to look like anything. And for a long time in my experience, I certainly believed that this curriculum needed to look a certain way. So, you know, it meant I had to take on this teacher role that didn't allow for work in the traditional sense, or it needed to be about, you know, literally leaving the world, so to speak, and all those beliefs and ideas, and they've since dissolved. And it's beautiful to hear you speak and share, because it's not about behavior, it's not about the way the form looks. And going back to what we just shared, we don't know what anything is for. And you so eloquently shared how the miracles have shown up in your experience, regardless of what the the costume is, because I often think about the work really is just a costume, but beneath that is something so much deeper. Paul West asks or shares on the chat. He says, sometimes I don't want to do things because it would be ego, but Holy Spirit suggests to do it because he knows that in order to do it, I will have to confront blocks and beliefs that need undoing. So that feels like it's kind of like what you were saying, Myron, about the nudges, and I kind of also feel that too, Paul. It's like when something's inspired, you know, we hold back sometimes from our inspiration because we do have blocks and we do have fears. So the only way to look at those fears and those blocks are to step into it and be willing to be vulnerable. Going back to what was shared before is, you know, the willingness to be vulnerable will show us our invulnerability, but we won't be able to see it or witness it until we follow, like the nudges. Myron, you were talking about those nudges and how, you know, from a logical standpoint, it may not have made sense to cross state lines, but when you get a nudge or you got that push, you know, you have to follow.
Right.
Yeah,
and what I'm saying about you know, you have to step into it to undo the blocks, and that's what, you know, that's what the world is for. That's what we're here for, is to do that. We all have our classrooms. I was talking to someone today. We were discussing kind of the same thing, and I've often heard people say, but I don't really want to be here. I hate this. I shouldn't be here. I feel guilty because I'm here. You know, this is where it's happening. This is where we want to be. We want to be right down here in the muck, because that's the only place where all this is going to be undone. He tells us in the course that we have to start, I can't remember how he phrases it, but basically we've got to start where we made the error. You know, you got to start at the error. So, so where can we do that except here? You know, this is where it's happening. We're going to look. This is where we're going to get triggered. This is where. Another thing that she was saying this morning is that she says, I was doing much better when I wasn't out in the world so much. You know, everything was more peaceful. And I said, well, heck yeah, because there wasn't anything triggering you. But just because you're not triggered doesn't mean that stuff isn't there. It's there. You just don't know it's there. You want the triggers. Thank those triggers. You know, thank your husband for making you mad, because it's pulling up for you to look at, so you can see what it is that still needs to be healed. So. Yep.
Yep, and I love that example. You know, I can speak from my own experience. You know, I moved to Hawaii, and there's not a lot that happens here where I am. There's not a lot of people. I don't interact with a lot of people simply because I'm in the middle of nowhere, and it's gorgeous and so forth. But and I came from Los Angeles, where there was seemingly a lot of button pushing, and, you know, in the midst of 9 to 5 and so forth. And so, you know, the ego's clever. It says, oh, well, you know, if you get away, if you solve the problem in form, and you get away from everything, then all your problems go away. But it's so not true, because to your point, Myron, it is still there if it's not looked at. And my experience is the only thing is it just gets projected on something else. So I'm not fighting with the traffic, but I'm fighting with the turkeys who are eating my seedlings that I just planted. So you know, the suffering is still there. You know, the form changes. So this, you know, bringing it back. It is never, ever about form, and it's about healing in the mind. And the opportunity really is when we're charged. Because there's something going on in that moment. There's some block to the awareness of love's presence, and here's the world, like you were saying, Myron, its purpose is serving its purpose to show you here's an opportunity to heal.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, all of my relationship lessons are with people. I use those a lot, And with my children, not as much. They, we don't interact daily, but still, those are big relationships. But I start to feel like I got this whole relationship thing down. Yeah, I've got these little things here and there that come up. That's good. But then I talk to someone else who is having relationship problems with their partner or whatever, and they're I can see very clearly. It's easy emotionally, so you can see that easily. And again, I'm thinking, okay, got this. And then my little granddaughter will come over and spend the night with me, and everything gets disrupted. And I love her dearly. She is precious. She pushes my buttons sometimes, and I think I should get. I don't know as I think I am in the relationship thing, and it's because I'm not triggered all the time. I have this. There's nobody here. My grandfather with me. He's very, very easy to get along with, and he's not. He and I do not interact with people who live in the same household. So I kind of wonder about that. Just how much is left for the relationship. Relationships they're serious work. That's really serious work. So I'm going to work with what I have.
You broke out a little bit, Myron, so I didn't hear everything that you just shared. But what I did hear, or what I thought I heard, was you share about relationships and the opportunity that they present to show us where we're still blocked in our mind, and where we are triggered is really our indication. In my experience, I have the same thing. It's like, and it's funny because I did read a post of yours recently where you spoke about relationships, and it's at no point in the relationship can I be the victim. At no point in the relationship can I be betrayed. Of course, the Bible says the Son of God cannot be betrayed. So, and it's so tempting, especially in these intimate or romantic relationships. It's so tempting to want to be right, want to think that we know the circumstance, want to somehow, and the Course does say this later on in the special relationships section, is that we want to live, the ego wants to live at the expense of the special relationship. It wants to live on someone else's death, So there's this temptation to always want to, be right, or seemingly put the other down, or blame the other person. But that's all just more opportunity for us, or tools for us to heal and to recognize that in any relationship.
Absolutely, and that is a serious area. If you want to get triggered, that's a place to do it. Get into an intimate relationship where it's like a constant back and forth, there's this constant, as you say, temptation, opportunity to project the other person, and I'm not in that position now, so it's not happening for me. But hopefully, it's healing in other, like at work and what have you. So with children and my grandchildren, and so in a place for me. I've been married 3 times, divorced 3 times. And the last time that I was divorced, it was such a welcome thing for me to do. I felt like I'd done what I could do with it to be done, but at that time. And I was so very happy to be out of it. I waited for the signs. I waited see, you know, when is the time to do it. And it was all very clear. It all happened perfectly smoothly. I know that it was exactly what I was to do. Imagine my surprise when I discovered I wasn't through. You know, I was happy. I'm not with this person. And yet, all of the stuff that was unresolved had to be resolved. It kept coming. So, situation that it's not the outward situation I had to do anything with, it was the inward situation that had to be resolved. So I continued work on that relationship. As it happens, my ex-husband works same place I do. So we saw each other periodically. He is in sales also, so he went one way, I went the other, but we still went to the same meeting together. And so it was perfect because I was out of it. I had a breathing room. I had some opportunity to stop, ask Spirit for help, stop, then go back into it, and then come out again and do it. So it probably took a couple of years for it to be completely healed. Maybe I don't remember exactly, but it took that to completely resolve that there's nothing between us except action. And for both of us, it was, you know, not resolved for me, it was for him too. So, you know, you don't get out of anything by getting out of the relationship. Because the relationship is in your mind, I guess is what I'm saying. That's where you can't get away from your mind. So I knew that it had finally been completely healed because one time we're sitting together at a meeting and everybody got up to do something else together, and I turned to him and said something like, I don't know if I've ever really apologized to you for my part in our relationship part that I did not, where I was not loving, you know. And he was starting to see him melt. I mean, it was like that was it. That was the thing he was waiting for. Now, he didn't turn around and say, well, I apologize to you, but I didn't care because I didn't need that anymore. All of that had been healed. And so now there's nothing but complete affection. He got married. I went to his wedding. I almost conducted his wedding because they had a minister lined up, and at the last minute they lost touch with him. Well, you know, I'll be glad to do it. And he said, oh, he said, you were the first person I thought of. So it's a completely healed relationship. But it had to be done. You can't just walk away from the relationship. You can walk away from the person. You can walk away from the outward situation. But every relationship must be healed, as he says in the Course. And if you do it sooner, then you're just happier sooner.
That's a piece of good advice. Well, Myron, thank you so much. I appreciate your sharing in this last bit. You did break up a little bit, but I think the heart of what you were getting at and what I walk away with this sharing is just all about everything being in the mind. And again, not finding or not leaning on the solution in terms of form, and always coming back to the healing of the mind or in mind. And to me, that really is the Holy Spirit's curriculum. So I want to thank you with 1 minute left to go. I want to thank you for being here. I also want to give you an opportunity to share if someone wants to follow up on your teachings and what you do. Where can they go?
I should
Myron, I can't hear you. It seems to be breaking up again.
Can you hear me at all now?
Oh yes, now. It seems like if you turn off your camera,
okay.
Just leave the audio. Perhaps the internet will be clearer.
Okay, let me see if I can do that.
It's 1 o'clock.
There we go. Is that okay?
Perfect.
Can you hear me now?
Hear you crystal clear.
Okay, cool. So I have 3 groups on Facebook. I have ACIM Study of the Text, ACIM Study of Manual for Teachers, and a very interactive ACIM Study of the Daily Lessons. If you would like to take part in that particular study, you would need to ask me, because it's not a secret group, but it's a closed group, so people can share more freely. And I also I have 2 books that if you've not read, you may enjoy. But all my information is on my website, www.forgivenessisawayhome.org. And thank you so much. Thanks for letting me be here. And thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thank you. Love you so much, Myron, and your teaching, and I look forward to seeing you again. And thank you, everybody, for being a part here. It's just such a joy to join with you. Thank you. I love you so much. Big hug to every one of you. Have a good day. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks, Myron. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.